City Chamber, and on behalf of the Michigan City Chamber, LEAP, and the Westville Area Chamber of Commerce, we welcome you to this third House session today. We're grateful. We're grateful you chose to start your morning with us here today, engaging in something that truly matters, the future of the community. One of the things that I love most about events like this is that they bring together people who care. You guys got up, you got here, and you care about the community. People that on their own support organizations or businesses that look for the bigger picture. This third House session is about understanding what's happening at the State House and the City Halls, asking thoughtful questions, and making sure that the voices of LaPorte County are heard. Today is an opportunity to not just listen, but to learn and engage, and I encourage you to take full advantage of that. Lean into the discussion, connect with the people around you, and don't be afraid to speak up. Chambers exist to convene, advocate, and lead, and that's what we're doing here today with LEAP and Westville, the collaboration that we have. Thank you for being here again, and for your investment in the region, and for showing up as leaders. We're excited to get this started today. This morning, Bert Cook, Executive Director of LEAP, will be leading the questions for the panel, so I'll invite Bert up to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Bert Cook, Executive Director of the LaPorte Economic Advancement Partnership. So I'm going to start with, is there anyone that is a Los Angeles Rams fan in the building?
Just for one reason.
Oh, Mayor, you were not the person that's supposed to answer that. Ronnie, we did agree we can have those people removed from the building at this point, correct?
She's got a good reason.
Not the mayor, anyone else.
We got a Michigan City
We're
alumni.
supporting a Michigan City alumni.
Understood.
That's it.
No, I do want to thank Kurt for the partnership. We're excited to be here this morning. Don Babcock with Purdue Northwest, thank you for hosting us. It's always a great venue to be able to host this wonderful event. So just to give you a quick idea, and then I'm going to be quiet because I know you're here to hear from our panel. We're going to take a few minutes and let each of our legislators update us on what they're working on, initiatives that are being discussed. At the end of that portion, we will do question and answer. So if you have questions, obviously save those up and we will address them at the end of the presentation. And then I think almost everyone's able to stay a few minutes after we're done as well. So if you had something you'd rather ask in private, I think many of our panelists will be willing to speak with you in private as well. I'll introduce everyone at first, and then Senator Bohacek will start with you, but we do have Senator Mike Bohacek, Senator Rodney Pohl, State Representative Jim Pressel, State Representative Randy Novak, County Commission President Steve Holofield, and Michigan City Mayor Angie Nelson Deutsch. I will apologize, Mayor Dermody had planned to be here this morning. Unfortunately, he's under the weather. So my gift to all of us is I made sure he was not here and touching everyone here today. So I'll start with Senator Mike Bohacek.
Good morning. It's been a very interesting time here at the State House. We did some stuff back in December. I'm pretty sure nobody heard about that. I mean, didn't make the news or anything. So hopefully that issue is behind us. I didn't see any legislation. I don't know if Rep. Pressel did or Rep. Niemann or Rep. Novak did, but it looks like that issue is going to be dead for this session. But what that left us with is a very condensed 8-week session. This is a short session, so it usually moves pretty quick anyway. But now it's even faster than before. So next week, if your bill is not heard and through committee by next Thursday, it's dead. So that's how fast we're moving. So it's going to be an interesting time. I know that some of you guys are concerned about Senate Bill 1 that we passed last year, some of the tax reform stuff. I know the House, and I'm sure the House guys can talk about it. I think the House is working on some potential fixes, but we haven't seen them yet in the Senate because it's just such a compressed time frame. I know in the Senate we're working on some issues with some of our entitlement programs, SNAP, some of the welfare stuff, a little bit of TANF. Just trying to make sure that those programs, Medicaid included, make sure that we have some guardrails around them, so we're protecting, the viability of the programs. They're vital programs, but we want to make sure that the right people are getting the benefits, and also trying to get folks to move off of the benefit train and start, becoming a little bit more independent. And Senate Bill 1 is going to try to do that. We're also working on it's a joint resolution, so this would be something that Senator Paul is not real thrilled with, because it's just a philosophical difference. It has to do with allowing the judges to be able to hold what they deem as dangerous people without bond. So typically, there's a couple of things you can hold people without bond for. Treason, sedition, and murder, absolutely. Well, this is going to give the judiciary some other opportunities to not offer bond. So if somebody, is a bondable offense, and they're really, really pretty dangerous, let's not let them out back into the community. So, there needs to be some cleanup on it, I think, just to be able to get some exceptions in there, because I don't think that that's always the best cause of action. This year, I've got 2 bills still moving with the potential for another one. Every year I talk about prescription drugs, because I have this ongoing fight with the insurance industry, and how much they mark up your prescription drugs. Last year in Senate Bill, or House Bill 1004, we were able to amend in some language. So starting this year, at the end of the year, you will receive an explanation of benefits, which is that thing that everybody throws away after they go to the doctor. And it will tell you how much you paid in drug rebates. If you guys don't remember these conversations from before, if you remember the high cost of insulin everybody was complaining about, and rightly so, Eli Lilly testified that their Humalog insulin that they sell in the marketplace for about $350 a vial, they're getting about $125 actually remitted back to Eli Lilly. The rest of that money that they charge you, they remit back to your insurance company. It's called a drug rebate, which that's what they have to pay them in order to be able to have it be a covered drug. It's kind of a weird process. So now, since you don't know that that's happening, at the end of the year, you're going to get a statement that shows what a drug rebate is, how much you paid, and who got your money. So we're hoping that's going to give some pressure to the insurance industry and also to your employer to make sure that they can justify that expense. Then the other part of that bill I've been working on has to do with generic drugs, which is the other 85% of the drug space, and how much those get marked up. Because you kind of wonder, I pay for health insurance, and I have my card, my little Buyers Club card that I paid, whatever I paid to participate in my employer's health insurance. But I go to get my prescription drugs, and they're more expensive than it is on GoodRx. Well, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm paying to be in this club, I'm paying for the list, and to be able to get the discount, but a free app is cheaper. And what it is just the pure markup that your insurance company is putting on the drug. So your insurance company is charging you to get it into their network, but then they're also profiting on your drugs. So what this bill does is the price that that your insurance company pays for the drug, it's called the National Average Drug Acquisition Cost. Couldn't get a name any bigger than that. So it shortens down to NADAC, and that's the commodity price for a generic drug. It's now going to be on your point of sale documents. So when you pick up your prescriptions, it used to say your insurance saved you X. It doesn't say that anymore. But now it's going to tell you how much the drug cost. So when you see that the drug cost was $6 and your bill is $56, you're going to ask the pharmacist, hey, what's the $50 for? He's going to say, call your insurance company. So hopefully just that pressure from the market is going to force them to start lowering their prices. We did some cost analysis. There was a think tank in Florida that looked at it last year and said that this will carve out just over $1 billion into Anthem's corporate profits just by us doing this. And that'll be money that should hopefully be coming back to us. So that's some stuff we're still working on. Like I said, it's early and late in the session at the same time. So it's moving really, really quick. So and then I'll look for some questions later on.
And thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Now we'll move to State Senator Ronnie Polk.
Thank you very much. So you guys, I put some handouts on your desk. I won't go through all of these. So if you have any questions about them in particular, I'll take them afterwards. Just to kind of run through a couple of them, some of the bills that I'm working on this session. The first and foremost one that I've been working with, the economic development director with Michigan City McLaren's on the Transit Development District licensing, trying to provide more flexibility on liquor licensing and other, with the intent of more economic development in our in our transit-oriented development areas. This is something that, you know, we think is really, really important. I mean, obviously, Michigan City is on the up. You know, you're starting to see not only just Michigan City, but a lot of these places where, you know, we've established these districts and we've put parameters on, and we're looking and going, okay, we can expand outside of this. And so that's something that we've been working on for the last couple of years, having good conversations with the chair on this one for public policy. Up next, you know, is in an attempt to kind of really curb some of this, some of the gun violence that we've seen kind of pop up in our area, including Porter and LaPorte County into the Crime Guns Task Force. This is a task force that was started back in 2021, and the ROI, the return on investment, for dollar that we've expended from the state legislature on this in central Indiana is like no other task force that we've created. They have been able to take tons and tons of these illegal firearms off the streets. They've been able to you know, confiscate tons of drugs. They've made a number of arrests, and it's through coordination, collaboration with Marion County and the donut counties. And you know, that collaboration didn't exist before. And with this heightened attention to the movement of illegal guns as they're committed, used in different crimes and committed and actually interconnected, it has been pretty incredible because it's collaboration also not just with the inner counties, but it's also with the federal government as well. Last year we added Lake County, and so it only made sense that, you know, we need to start a sub-region up here in Northwest Indiana, because we know what happens in Lake County doesn't just stay in Lake County. We know what happens in Chicago, it doesn't just stay in Chicago. That will spill over as, you know, somebody commits a murder in Chicago, they're likely not going to stay in Chicago. They're probably gonna maybe go to Lake County, they may come out to Michigan City, they might go out to Portage, or they might go down to Indianapolis. And having all of us reading from the same sheet of music, getting the same training, getting the same resources, this just was a no-brainer. Senator Bahacek has been kind enough to join me on that bill. And so this is, you know, real efforts to put real dollars towards solving crime in a much more collaborative way. Up next is a bill that I don't know, I'm trying to get Pressel to join me on this one, but it's in response to the toll road bill last year. You know, Jim did a very great job. Jim did a very great job. I mean, here's the brass tacks on it. As the chair of transportation, Jim had a very tough job. How are we going to pay for these roads as it gets more and more expensive? And it was not all that popular. We saw billboards and we saw the response to, you know, toll roads, and it was something that I knew that it was something I wouldn't be able to support, but I understood why. And so in looking at, you know, kind of what that meant to our community and what it meant to be able to still pay for the roads, I kind of really intently listened as to what was happening. And what we were hearing was, well, you know, 80% of the folks that drive on our roads that could potentially be tolled are from out of state. And so that's, you know, if we just left it at 80%, that's great revenue for us. We may not, if we do 100%, that includes the other 20%, us that drive those roads. So I thought, you know what, we do vouchers for private schools. Let's do vouchers for transportation. And so if you live or you work in a county that has a toll road, we would give you a voucher for transportation if, you know, we establish new toll roads. That way, we would still have 80% new revenue from out of state, and we would avoid issues, legal issues, by providing these as vouchers, just as we do for private schools. So I'm trying to get Jim to, you know, if you guys can, nudge him to help me out with this one. But I'm trying to make sure that we don't have to pay those tolls, and that we are collecting them from out of state, and that they are paid that way. Just being innovative, trying to. Other than that, you know, to go off of what Senator Bahacek was saying, we've got a bill that would cap insulin just flat out at $35. This was something that the Biden administration had really pushed for. You know, with the administration change that was repealed, I think there's talk about, you know, reinstating it back at the federal level, but we could do it here at the state level. And so the intent was, you know, if you need insulin, obviously if you need it, you need it. It's not a, well, you know, I could use it, it'd be great, I feel healthier. No, you need it. So in order to kind of crack down on the same issue that Senator Bahacek was talking about, just capping it at $35. A couple other things, employment, you know, some of the employment matters. Unemployment and workers' compensation, we have some of the lowest rates in the state. Those need to be, or sorry, not in the state, in the country, definitely in the Midwest. I mean, we're rivaling some of the most southern states, and for us here in Indiana, particularly in Northwest Indiana, we know that that's pretty pathetic. We could treat our employees much better than that. Other than that, just some of the bigger agenda items, that we have is from the Senate, Democrats definitely looking at utilities, trying to help, the locals, as data centers come online and as they are being proposed. I don't think from the state standpoint, this has happened so quickly. We haven't provided a whole lot of guidance and guardrails and things that would provide a little bit more uniformity. So Senate Bill 79 aimed directly at making sure that would happen. In addition to that, childcare is always a major issue. I think I've done this third house maybe 3 times, and I think every single time I'm talking about childcare. And I'm talking about it because my constituents are talking about it, you guys are talking about it. And it's an issue that we keep chipping away at, but we really do just need to hammer down on this. One of the more innovative things that we've seen this year, one of the refiles from last year was the child and independent care tax credit, but one of the newer things was this Hoosier Family Leave Insurance Program. You guys have short-term disability, you guys have, the different types of disability that you can get through your employer. And oftentimes one of the things that gets left in the gap is this idea of family leave. If you have a new child, or if you have a sick dependent, you have a sick father, sick mother, grandparent, or somebody that you're trying to take care of, and you need time off, a lot of people will go, well, I'll just take FMLA. And then they're surprised when they get their check and they go, how come I didn't get paid? Well, because FMLA protects your job, it does not keep your paycheck going. What this insurance program, if we were able to establish this, would do was you could, if you anticipated being a new family in the next couple of years, or if you saw that somebody's health is a concern in your family that you're going to need to take care of, you can invest in one of these insurance programs that would provide you short-term disability, much of the same as if you yourself became short-term disabled. So just looking at ways that we can solve some of these issues as people become much more looked at as or depended on much more to take care of their younger ones or their older ones. Other than that, healthcare, there's a number of healthcare bills that are there and housing bills. I'll stop talking because I could talk all day about these, but if you have any specific questions about these, please go ahead and ask. I'm going to pass this over to Mayor Anchik.
Rodney, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Mayor, before we go to you, let's go to State Representative Jim Pressel on the end, please.
Thanks, appreciate it. Thank you all for being here today. It's always nice to see so many smiling, friendly faces when we come home, and I think the other legislators on the panel can tell you the first 2 weeks of session has been exhausting. There's over 400 bills that have been filed in the House. I typically have a bill count for the Senate. I can't tell you. Trying to sift through in a very short period of time what are topics that need to move. And every legislator that files a bill, of those 400, those are all important topics to each and every one of those, and unfortunately they are not going to move. I anticipate maybe 200 make it over to the Senate, and of those 200 that probably get into the Senate, maybe 100 of those will survive. So legislation that I'm working on this year is House Bill 1044. That did make it out of committee so far, and I think that's a really good piece that the professional firefighters or career firefighters brought to me along with FOP. So if you are disabled in the line of duty, and it's Class 1 or Class 2 disability, which means you really can't work, we need to take care of those people. And what's going on in some locations right now is their health insurance for their family is no longer provided for, even though they can't work. So that will help out about 150 Hoosiers, closest I can figure. Some municipalities are taking care of their first responders. And it really just guarantees them the ability to continue to have health insurance for their family at the same cost that they're paying right now. So it's not like a free ride. They still have to pay for it, but there is the portion that units of government will have to chip in. So good bill, that's going to be on third reading on Tuesday. Hopefully I can get that out. Local regulation, it's a bill that I had last year that died in the Senate. It really focuses on government, homeowners associations should not be able to tell you what your fuel source is for your car, your weed whacker, your lawnmower. I think that's a consumer choice. Government shouldn't play a role in limiting what you can and cannot do when it comes to those things. So, and it's got some airport overlay district. I know this is all exciting stuff. No, skip on that one. So 1200 is the BMV agency bill. Pretty sure the chairman's going to give a hearing to that on the 26th because I am the chairman, so it's going to happen. BMV agency bill is kind of like a catch-all for what minor changes or major changes that the agency needs to evolve with. So one of them being we no longer have a penny, so we have to figure out what are we going to do. We round it up, we round it down. So we're going to round down. So some will sell this as a tax cut. It's honestly, it's just round down, right? How many people pay in cash? Not many. So credit cards, you still have the ability to do that. That's one piece of it. Last year in the BMV agency bill, I put some language in that made it around through multiple bills to get this done, but it didn't end up in the BMV bill, and it was to basically say that you can't advertise a criminal activity on a billboard. So we have all of the marijuana shops, totally separate conversation. This is not about legalizing marijuana. It's about advertising a criminal activity in the state of Indiana. So they were very creative after we passed that legislation, left the door open. I don't believe government should interfere with a contract in the public sector. So we did not do that. And what happened before July 1st was some of the folks wanting to advertise took 10 and 20-year contracts on billboards, the media flyers. And I get inundated. My wife even sends them to me going, "Can you believe I got another one of these?" So we're gonna have a fix for that, maybe a little bit creative. Hopefully the Senate's with me on this one. Grease traps sounds like a problem we really don't need to deal with, but it's more about government, getting government out of the way. So I've got units throughout the state that entrepreneurs that want to put in a Jimmy John's sandwich shop. Should they be required to put in a 2,000-gallon grease trap at the expense of $60,000 when they create very little grease? So this will limit how government looks at that, how utilities actually look at it, so that we can encourage entrepreneurship and not stand in the way. 1247 is the 811 bill, another one that you would think, why are you doing that? 811 is the underground locate stuff. I got involved in that part probably in September when I was told by NDOT, or NDOT reached out for assistance. We were about to shut down the Highway 20 expansion project, and the contractor was going to leave. We were responsible to pay them for what it costs to mobilize and then remobilize. The cost of new asphalt in the spring would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million, all because we couldn't get locates for them to continue doing their job. So with roads and road funding being the way that it is, we need to figure out how to do that. And the deeper that I dive will take me into a little bit of a utilities conversation. Our utility bills are all too high, right? So how do we fix that? So when I talk to NIPSCO, which is not statewide, NIPSCO spends $27 million a year doing those locates on gas. I think we will all get a rate cut if we can figure out how to do this more efficiently. So NIPSCO should be happy. I'm working on this. Where's Katie? I was giving her grief this morning.
Right there, she's smiling.
Yeah, you're with me on this, right?
Yes.
She thinks so. Those are the bills I'm working on. There is always a township consolidation bill. I think there are 2 or 3 this year. Not sure what's going on with the Senate one. The House version did get a hearing. Not sure where it's at, where it got amended. Not in one of the 3 committees that I serve on, so not focused on it until it's second reading or until I can at least clear my calendar of bills I'm responsible for in other committees. Big one that I'm involved with this year is, again, back to the utility rates and a little bit of a change up. It's a PBR bill. It's House Bill 1002. It's a priority in the House. It is not about past blue ribbon. It is performance-based rate making. So far, I will tell you that the utilities are united in opposing this bill. It's got some, I refer to it, there's some hair on this dog, and there is. We're going to work through it, but the goal is to do responsible rate making into the future. There's been a huge change up in the IURC. The governor appoints those folks, so we've got 3 brand new commissioners, and we're really trying to systematically change how we do rates. So, and how we do rate-based cases. So I won't get real deep in the weeds on that one, but that's a huge bill. Pay attention to that one. And 1001, a housing deregulation bill, another good piece of legislation that is held up in committee right now. Hopefully it gets out of committee. And when you see in the House side, the 1001 through 1010 bills, those are House priority bills. So chances of 1001 moving, probably a pretty good chance. It's got a lot of great things in it to at least maintain cost of housing and try to work for more affordable housing. And being from the housing industry, I can tell you, I don't think housing is affordable at whatever scale you're on. It's very expensive, but so is everything else. We're trying to deregulate some things so that we can at least lower some of the costs of housing. I appreciate Senator Pohl mentioning the tolling bill or the road funding bill. There's been a lot of conversation. If you're reading in the media or you're seeing the blips, myself and the governor's office are not getting along right now. We're canceling projects we've postponed. I was told we're not canceling them. We've postponed projects over the last year and a half. About 340 so far. But we're considering moving, and the General Assembly doesn't get a vote on this, but we're going to build a brand new road at the cost of $1.2 billion in southern Indiana, and that project is moving forward in 27 so far. And I took personal offense to that after taking all those arrows last year, that we're going to potentially invest in one particular road, and all of the local projects are getting postponed. So that's been a pretty hot topic for me. Like I said, I think the second floor is pretty pissed, but they'll get over it. Senator Pohl has got a brilliant idea. I've thought about this more and more with the voucher program for tolls. The Commerce Clause does not allow us to treat anybody else on the road differently. So if you're from Ohio, you're from Illinois, you're from Michigan, we can't charge a different rate. It has to be same rate. We can give discounts if you use a transponder, but the voucher idea is a work of genius. I'm like looking into it, I don't know, and I've never been pitched to hear somebody's bill at a third house. That's a first. So with that, I will yield the remainder of my time if there is any.
Senator Pohl, I heard brilliant and genius in the same
I'll take it.
couple sentences.
I'll take it.
I've never seen that one before. So.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Now we'll move to State Representative Randy Novak.
Good morning, everybody. Just so everybody knows, I've spent my first 2 weeks pretty much advising Jim, Johnny, and Mike. So, so I've been a little bit behind so catching up. So, and when people tell you, and I'm new to this job, 10 weeks, I think it is. So when people tell you, oh, you got to get up to speed, this is like getting on a 10-lane highway that's going 90 miles an hour from a stop. It moves very fast. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of things going on. So with that said, I took over for Pat Boy, and I took over 2 of her committees, Natural Resources and Environmental. Environmental, we got a committee meeting this next week. We got some issues on there. Natural Resources, the one thing I'll tell you is we passed out of there state parks, in Dune State Park in Porter County, which is, I believe, has more, I don't know why I looked at Jim, has more attendance than any other state park in the state of Indiana. But all the state parks, it allows local county councils to impose up to $1 entrance fee on that, to help with infrastructure, help with police, fire, things like that, because state parks don't pay taxes. So it doesn't mean that they're going to impose it. It just allows them that if they have a need, water, sewer, something for that park, it allows them to do that. One of the bills that I introduced that actually is a committee hearing this next week, and I'm thrilled, and I've got some good support, and Jim is one of them in the House, is volunteer firemen. So volunteer firemen right now, if you know anything about the state of the volunteers, first of all, I retired from the fire department, if you didn't know that, and I still chair with Andy Snyder the LaPorte County Fire Chiefs Association. In LaPorte County, we have 2 career departments and 16 volunteer departments. The number one issue we have is manpower. And this is across the entire state. So this is not unique to LaPorte County. But the statute, the way it reads right now, a volunteer gets $100 for car allowance and $100 for clothing allowance a year. That's what they get. That's the minimum standard. And I'll tell you this, just this last week in Long Beach, one of the firefighters stood up and says, hey, I got my $200 check. So obviously we work for peanuts. And I don't even know at today's rate you can buy peanuts for the whole year with that. But so this would increase that to $250 each. So it'd go from $200 a year to $500 a year. This isn't going to change anybody's tax brackets or do anything, but it's a way to try and stop the crisis that we have with the lack of firefighters, because we're lucky in LaPorte County because we have very good mutual aid agreements and everything else, but there's some South counties where another representative was telling me it took over 40-some minutes for EMS or the fire department to show up. I mean, we have to do something about that. So in that same tone, you got township consolidation. This is not my bill. But it's something that I'm working on, because I believe when it comes to township consolidation, we have to fix the volunteer firefighter part of the townships before we can eliminate townships. Because that is the biggest part of it. And if we can fix that, then townships, the merge of townships could be a lot easier. But one of the bills goes in and just cuts townships off at the knees and throws the fire departments underneath the EMA director in the county. That's not going to work. Because fortunately in LaPorte County we've got a very good EMA director, but there's some counties that don't. And it's a political appointment by the commissioners, and some are good, some aren't. I do have like Jim, I've got a line of duty disability on PFAS. If you know anything about PFAS, I won't go into the down and dirty on that. But a study just came out, and I think it just came out this last week. I just seen it yesterday. They did a study last year, they funded it on PFAS with firefighters, and the study came out that firefighters have a much higher level of PFAS, which is a cancer-causing chemical, in their system. So we're just kind of learning about that. That hasn't got a hearing yet, but I'm also following up on, there's an education bill that, according to the news, I think it's dead. The one with South Bend school system, that's kind of following that one close, even though it didn't directly affect us, but you just hate to see something like that because things get domino. There was one I went and spoke at that eliminated AEDs. So last year they passed, the school corporations had to have AEDs throughout the school grounds. This year, they had a bill to eliminate them, because some school corporations said that was too imposing and they couldn't afford it. Well, if you can't afford it, maybe someday you can, but if you eliminate it, they're never going to do it. So fortunately, I believe that part of it is going to be coming out. Some of the other things that we're working in, we had State of the State Wednesday night, and I'm here to tell you that the governor supports everything that the Democrats are doing. He supports utility bill cost, he supports lower health care, homeowner achievement, reduced cost of child care, and supports safe communities. It was great. So, so that was interesting. The other, and being very new to this, and I'll wrap this up with this. Some things move fast, and people don't understand why, and there's other things that should move that don't move, and it's hard for people to understand. So we've got some very serious issues that we're trying on. It's a very short session, as everybody has indicated. So they're not necessarily taking on huge, complex issues. But the good news is the pork tenderloin is probably going to be the state sandwich. I know, you were like, what's it going to be? These are things, and usually you pass them, and they go through and they fly through because, you know. But being a newcomer, it's hard to kind of go, really? I mean, how come we can't? There's other issues. But with that, I'm absolutely enjoying it. I appreciate, and I do lean on the other three guys that are up here a lot, and they're doing a fantastic job, and I appreciate their support.
Thank you, Randy. So now we'll move to a more local perspective, and we'll start with County Commission President Steve Holyfield.
Good morning. I've been following local government for about 25 years. I've had this man point his gavel at me on more than one occasion to sit down and be quiet. All four of these gentlemen, I will be meeting with them the last week in January. I'm going to be at the State House again. That's my 11th year down there, taking issues and answering questions. Here locally, this first year, the big problems we had was everyone knew about solid waste fire. We finally got those bills paid this week. Checks are in the mail today or being picked up. And then our buildings are in major disrepair. It's either too hot, too cold. We're tackling them one at a time, getting those under control. And then here recently, as everyone knows, data centers are a big topic. Everyone knows what's going on over there at St. Joe County. We are preparing, I'm on a plan commission, we are preparing a data center ordinance. That way, they're a great tax-based building tool. I think they do a great job for that. My daughter's telling me that they're not going away, they're gonna keep getting bigger and bigger every year as long as we have cell phones and video games and everything else. But we have to make sure they go in the right areas and not disrupt private citizens' lives. And we also have to make sure that the private citizens are not paying for the utility rate increases for that or have water damage. There are several bills down there. I'm planning on talking with the sponsors about that. We're also doing a solar ordinance update. We do not want LaPorte County to wind up like Stark and Plaskett down there. That is a mess. That is a major mess. And so that we're working on a standalone, and then I would like to take the topic of carbon sequestration, which is next coming big time. Kosciuszko's been fighting them. One thing, these two gentlemen here have been a God's blessing for me. If I have a question or a problem, I can always call them and they answer me. So those are the topics we're moving towards this year. We've already had 3 major snow events this year, in the last couple months. That's more than we had all last year. And our staff and crews handle it quite well. People think it's weird when they look across the street going to the jail. They say, hey, how come this commissioner's office lights on at 3 o'clock in the morning? Well, you have to be in there to talk to highway, maintenance, other departments, EMA, 911, find out what they see as the issues for that day in the snow. So that way you make the decision. Does the county office close? Does it open late? I'm a firm believer it's best to open late. That way people still get to use their service, provided that the roads are safe. And that's why you talk to county highway in the mornings before daybreak and say, what do you see? What's going on? What do you think? And that way we can keep everybody safe coming to work or not going to work. One of the topics I'm going to be talking down there at the state with some different people is a township consolidation. I'm a firm believer. I've served on township boards. I think that's the first step in local government reform. As Randy says, the fire department's going to be the issue. I see, as my personal opinion, moving more towards territories and districts. The people I spoke with down there say it's coming in the future, but how do we pay for that? It's a very expensive thing to do. And after Senate Bill 1 was enacted last year, the local county councils they're having a tough time now making the budgets work. And it's going to get worse here in the next coming years. So I'm hoping these poor gentlemen can restructure that next year. This year's going to be difficult with a short session. And one thing I've learned about going down there, short sessions are short for a reason. They're quick. Boom, boom, boom. Things happen very, very quickly. Until I got here on this side of the desk in the county offices, I probably knew more about the state legislation, how it works there. And now that I'm on the inside, things are not what I thought they were on the council and the commission. Not nowhere close. But like I said, I talk to most council members at least once or twice a week. Adam Crocker is our president. We speak probably more than that, because we have to make sure that the projects get pushed through and done with all the contracts signed and everything else, especially with the updates we're doing on our buildings now. People are probably going by LaPorte, come down the overpass, you see those great giant diesel generators out there next to the courthouse. Well, our heating system stopped right before the downturn around Christmas, December 2nd. So we had to hurry up immediately, put bids out to get 4 proposals to get temporary heat inside that building, because one day the heat was down to 42 degrees inside that building. Now I'm proud to say now it's about 68 on average, and just issues like that. It's nonstop, one thing after another. I never thought I'd carry 2 phones in my life, but they ring constantly. Day, night, weekends, holidays, it doesn't matter. So I'll be around also after this for questions for anyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. We will finish with Mayor Angie.
Good morning, Happy New Year, everybody. I know it's early, but just to kind of echo a few things around the 3 snowstorms, our folks have done a phenomenal job. It's rough. I don't think people realize they work around the clock when those things happen. And one of my biggest things, I said, man, if I got to talk about leaves anymore, I don't know what I'm going to do. Jesus, it's like the leaves fell late, then we have a snow, then it freezes, then it unthaws, and it was just, it's a lot. But it's normal, y'all. It's normal.
Mayor, are you saying that the general public is not understanding of those type of things?
Right, you know.
Facebook says.
Yeah, you know, and thank God I don't look at that often. So I have a couple of things. I serve as the vice president and vice chair of the Indiana Conference of Mayors. And Senate Enrolled Act is a huge topic for us. I know I'll be down there at the end of the month. Last year, I think I was down there weekly. I think I met Jim. I was always knocking on the door, hey, can you come out for a minute? Because of the road funding. But this year is so fast paced that the mayors, we've coalesced around, you know, what we think we should be doing as far as what we would like to see change. So I'm going to cover a couple of those things because I don't think people realize the impact. You know, we just had a webinar yesterday that invited AIM did, and it talked about the impacts that it would have and how local government, even with, you know, passing these local income taxes, how it won't cover what we have already. And there's a lot of us in that boat. So the 3 things that we're asking of you all, so that you hear me, is that we reallocate the local income tax rate caps to support municipalities to keep us whole. Because the financial analysis wasn't done prior to. And so when we start telling, well, in 2028, Michigan City's gonna lose $4 million. Are you for real? I'm like, you didn't know that? That's what we're gonna lose. So to reduce the county services lit rate, the cap from 1.2 to 0.7 and reallocate to 0.5 to the municipal rate. So that would better align us with what we currently have. The other one that we're pushing, because as a mayor, we have some mayors of towns that are smaller. We also talked about expanding the rate eligibility, and we're a large county, but we're talking about, you know, one of the things we're asking is lower the minimum population threshold to adopt a municipal lit rate from 3,500 to 2,000 to allow more municipalities to participate. And again, LaPorte County, we have a lot of townships and all of that, you know, smaller towns in our area. And then the last thing, which is important, because for cities that are growing, we tend to bond and do different things for economic development, is that to remove the annual lit adoption requirement. Because again, if you have to do this annually, then if you're trying to bond, there is no stability in that if you have to adopt something every single year. So those are the three things that we're focused on from a state house perspective, from the mayors, our Indiana Conference of Mayors. So that's a big one. Locally, again, you know, our train station, our mixed-use development, you know, that's going to be completed this year. Again, we're looking to expand. Our transit development district is a great opportunity. We have 2 TIFs that are sunsetting, and they're big TIFs. There are north end, south end. they're sunsetting next year. So the Transit Development District actually goes pretty much from almost down from the second set of tracks by Ames Field all the way north. And then it includes some properties along that way. So this is an opportunity for us, as you see new restaurants and things coming in, having French cuisine and all these different new coffee shops. It's important that we have mechanisms in place to encourage and promote more of that. The other piece of that, we just received, in addition, our Safe Streets grant. So we had $100,000. I applied for another $250,000. So we now have $350,000 to focus on a plan for hitting those areas that ADA and different things to really come up with a plan. We are also working towards applying for our BUILD grant, and that's really about Michigan Boulevard. It's interesting, we did a comprehensive plan in 2017, and we did not include the second exit, the last exit of the state of Indiana on a corridor. So we're looking at doing a corridor plan for Michigan Boulevard. For those that don't know, Michigan Boulevard is now, the majority of Michigan Boulevard is in a TIF district. While on the redevelopment commission, we decided that we were going to connect two of the TIFs and include the majority of Michigan Boulevard so that we could start planning and really look at development in that area. I grew up in that area, and when I grew up, we had 2 grocery stores, 2 pharmacies, bakery, banks. We don't have any of that anymore, right? So I think this is a great opportunity for growth for us. Housing is a thing. We have a lot of housing projects that are going on, but I'll defer to questions, at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. So we will move to question and answer. Can I get Mike Riley? Do you mind coming up and grabbing a microphone, please? If you have a question, obviously put your hand up. Mike will bring the mic over so we make sure everybody can hear. And we've got plenty of time, so I think we'll have a good opportunity for questions here. Anyone brave enough to start? Charity?
So I know it's relatively new, but I just heard recently, well, yesterday, as a matter of fact, that the president has talked to Microsoft and they're going to help offset or pay for the data center and the electric bills, and Microsoft is all, this local people should have to pay for that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do.
Jim, you want to start?
You want to start?
Thanks,
For all
Bert.
the thoughts.
So a little bit, I'm happy to see the administration get on board with that and share the same concerns that I think everybody at this table. We can't put the cost of additional generation onto ratepayers, right? So, but what I know that's a big buzzword. It's out there, big buzz talk, right? It's out there all over social media. So 2 years ago, we had passed, and I think I was a co-author on this too, through the Utilities Committee, that mega users, whether it's a data center, whether it's a steel stamping facility, if you are a mega user, you're responsible for 80% of the cost of that generation up front, right? So now we're going to ask them to pay for 100% of it. I'm okay with it. So I think what you're not hearing about is we need generation, whether it's for a data center or for whatever. We import almost 30% of the electric that Hoosiers use today. So we're buying it off the grid, whether it's through PJM or it's through MISO, we are importing 30%. We need to encourage more generation. So one of the thoughts I have with the data centers is if we can get them to pay for 100% of their generation, totally good with it. But let's overbuild that generation to narrow that 30% import to where we can actually start to control some of those costs. So MISO and the RTOs really control what that wholesale value is versus the retail value. It's kind of like, think of it like the stock market, right? Stocks are up and down all day long, all month long. Electric is sold in the very same way.
Randy?
So real quick, one of the things you learn downstate is you hear things that you can't necessarily turn around and repeat to the public just yet. So I did meet with the president of NIPSCO this last week. I think NIPSCO is going to have an announcement coming up regarding some of this stuff, especially over in Hammond, unless it's already come out. If it has, Katie can talk about it. But there's some things coming. So a lot of this, I think, is getting, in our region here, might be getting fixed by the utilities. So I absolutely agree with Jim that generation is a big issue. One of the things that I'm afraid of with the president coming out and saying that, I believe mandating the coal-fired generation is to stay open. Now, I think Wheatfield was scheduled to come offline possibly the end of this year. And Michigan City possibly in 20, whatever the date was. And when these companies are running these, and they know they're gonna close it down at the end of the year, they're not pumping all this money into it. So now, my fear is, to keep this thing running, they're gonna have to start putting money in there. So that's not gonna help with us trying to keep our rates down. It's gonna cost utilities money to do that. So, and I'm not sitting here telling you we should keep them open or we shouldn't keep them open. I think when you just mandate something, when something's scheduled to close, it just makes it tough. So, but it is something that everybody is watching downstate. It's a huge issue, and we're working on it.
Mike, did you want to touch on that as well?
Yeah, real quick. So I have 4 counties or pieces of 4 counties, so I have a couple of different utility providers. NIPSCO did something kind of interesting and kind of novel to the industry. They created it's an independent company called Genco, and it's designed to force and capture all of that expense for these mega users and the generation increases they're going to need, to capture that and isolate the additional cost and force that on those industrial scale users to try to isolate some of us, the residential ratepayers, which they did receive regulatory approval, I think, back in September or October. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and how that's going to actually impact us. I think for the retail consumer, if it works out properly, we shouldn't see those big jumps like you could with some of the providers that didn't do this. Something else that's kind of interesting is the IURC just appointed a new chairman. Oddly enough, he sits right next to me in the Senate, Andy Zay. And he's a good friend, and it'll be nice to have somebody that we can lean on that is in fact the chairman of the IURC now, so it's going to be an interesting time. But something we didn't touch on, because this came out of the White House, this announcement, is there's also talk about preemption of state laws as to the placement of data centers, and that's some noise coming out of the omnipresent list of executive orders that keep coming out of the White House. So, but if that one actually does perfect, that could be a really interesting conversation, because it would preempt citing zoning for all the states, the locals, everybody. So that would be the first time I've ever seen that happen, where the nationals jumped ahead of our zoning. So.
Other questions?
That's the question table.
We're gonna have to separate those people.
Hi there, my name is Emily, and I'm asking this question on behalf of a colleague who is not able to be here today. She asked me to raise a question regarding H. Bill 1004, which I know Senator Whitney Novak mentioned a little earlier. Like you mentioned in earlier drafts, the bill appeared to remove or scale back language related to AEDs and cardiac emergency response planning that was passed and signed into law last year. So I was wondering if the table could speak to how those provisions are being currently evaluated as the bill moves forward. Thank you.
So there's amendment number 6 takes that, puts those back in there, or eliminates them from being removed. So as of, but there's no guarantee, but as of, what was the day? Wednesday, I think it was. Wednesday, that one fix of that bill seemed to be taken care of. Stay tuned. And they also took out the stop the bleed things which, if anybody knows, those are like tourniquets for police and everything, so if somebody gets shot, emergency services, that was removed out of there also. But we think we got it fixed. Now, Jim might tell you something different. Just kidding. Hopefully.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. That's the school deregulation bill. It's like, I don't know, a couple hundred pages long. I don't know that the author and chairman of education, the intent was to really remove that. It was a bill that large. The goal was deregulate what the state has given to school corporations over the years and try and give them less burden, right? So the chairman has committed, and there's an amendment, it's online, you can look at it. He has committed to put that back in place. So it's interesting, and I think we're talking about the same person, but she's been working on that for maybe 4 years, and we had to take little bites at the apple. I carried 2 pieces of legislation. First year we didn't get anything. Second year we did get something, and then Senator Rogers has been involved with it. I mean, I think that's all near and dear to all of us, right? So I would tell you that anything's possible, but I'm pretty sure it's going to stay in there.
Let's go down here. Mike, you want to touch on
Yeah,
this?
real quick. So here we go, yet again, another modernization of school bills. Every year, both from the House and the Senate, I can't leave us out because we've got our couple that do this too, we have these 100 pages of school-related stuff. And it's modernization of the school system, modernization of this, changing of that. We are taking things out in these bills that we just put in last year. And it's absolutely ridiculous already with these bills. I mean, you've got a 300-page bill that does 19 or 20 different things in the education space. Let's leave it alone and let the dust settle already. I vote against all of them because as soon as I come across one of them and I see something that's going to be repealed that we just put in the previous year or two, it hasn't been implemented, then in my opinion, the entire bill is trash. So it's really frustrating what's happening. You know, let the dust settle, let the schools implement this stuff. Let's see if it's really going to make a difference. And if it does, leave it in place. If it doesn't, get rid of it. I get it. But the way that education path works, I mean, I don't know how it is in the House, but I know certainly on my side, for some of us, it's very, very frustrating.
Thank you. Other questions? This table again.
I was wondering when Fawn was coming.
Oh, she's a lifer.
No, she is.
Knows how to ask a question. Well, to repeat what Senator Bohajek just said, like maybe leave it alone, let the dust settle. I am wondering about Senate Bill 8, which has to do with library budgets, fiscal matters. So the reason I'm wondering about that is the budget Senate Enrolled Act 1 last year really puts the same, that applies to all government units. So there are changes that are going to have to be made. So Senate Bill 8 would give control of library budgets to the county council. It seems to me like the dust needs to settle a little bit with the Budget Act because there's already a wealth of guardrails and controls that the county council has over library budgets. So I'm just wondering why this is necessary at this point, because as the changes get implemented with the budget bill, we'll no longer have our lit. We'll have to reapply to the county for that. And then in 2029, the county will have to approve any increase in our budget at all. So we won't get the growth quotient like other units and like we have in the past. So I'm just wondering why there's this push to, it seems, duplicative of structures that are already put into place. And in addition to that, libraries are the same as townships. There's 236, 37 libraries in the state of Indiana. So I think sometimes people don't realize if this goes through, then our county council will have 5 additional budgets to approve. And I'm sure that's not something they're hankering to do. At least I don't think they are. it seems like the learning curve is pretty steep already. I don't know that Mayor Angie wants to approve the budget of Michigan City Public Library in addition to what she already has to do. And it's unclear whether or not that would be her responsibility or the county's responsibility. So I guess I'm asking, do you think that's got traction? Why are we, like I'm a why person, why are we doing this when there's so many changes already in place? There's the question of library boards being appointed rather than elected, which seems to be the point people are trying to make. But the county council, the county commissioners, the school corporations all make appointments to library boards. And if there's any issue, it seems to me that the appointing authority has every ability in the world to direct their appointee to take certain actions and lead libraries in a certain direction, should that be what they want, rather than placing this additional workload onto people who are going to be struggling to keep up and figure out what all these changes mean. So
I can help you a little bit. The bill is still moving through the committee process, so we haven't seen the final work product yet. But, Vonda, if only every other library functioned like we do here fiscally in LaPorte County, it would be great, but they don't. We've got a lot that are not as responsible, both fiscally and reporting-wise, like we are here in LaPorte County. So that's what's pushing this. So unfortunately, legislation plays to the lowest common denominator, and in this case, you're going to be regulated like those that are not the good actors, and that's just the unfortunate byproduct of some of your peers' activities or lack of. So we'll have to wait to see what it looks like. And as far as Senate Bill 1 and some of the changes, I think that's going to be an ongoing dynamic process as more problems come up and as more things are discovered and we continue to adjust that bill. When Senate Bill 1 passed, without my support, but when it passed, the intent was always to keep it kind of a dynamic process. So as issues came up, to try to give counties and cities and local units like yourself the opportunity to try to vet some changes. And I think that's what's happening, at least it is this year, and I think it will continue.
Anybody else want to touch on that?
I will.
Steve?
Thank you for the question. We made our appointments to the libraries because they're on a rotational basis, and we usually reach out to the librarians or even your office to make sure we get the people that, if they want to stay and you want to keep them there, we want to make sure we get your opinion on that, so that way you can keep the library moving in the right direction, because you guys are better. There's some state representatives and senators downstate that don't think local control matters, but it does matter. And I think the best thing to do is for us to make the decisions up here. So that's why we usually reach out. We reach out to all the departments and say, who do you want to keep? Is there a reason you don't want this particular candidate? And so I think the best option is for us to make sure that you get the people appointed to your board that you want.
Real quick. One of the bills I introduced because of the effects of SB 1 was any entity that has a TIF district, if there's excess funds, 10% of that has to be set aside for schools, for libraries, and for public safety. Because when you create a TIF and you lock it up and that TIF takes off, all the new generated taxes are captured. So, and I have Bert looking at me like that. Bert's probably like, but it's a small way to maybe, in any new TIF, they cannot bond, they have to set 10% aside to go to those entities. They can't bond that money. It goes to them. So I agree with your concerns. You also have to understand, downstate, they're looking for a fix. It could be for a small portion of the issues, like Steve said, or Mike said, the libraries that don't work, possibly. And they're applying it to 92 counties evenly. So it's hard to find a fix for a county and then apply it across the state and get the same effect that you're getting there. So it's tough.
Just very quickly, I mean, I think, when SB 1 was passed, I think everybody at this table kind of understood we knew that this was going to be a problem, and I don't remember the votes, but I know that Senator Bohacek and I can speak for the Senate, I know that we saw these issues kind of coming and saying, we're gonna be here next year having to fix this. Unfortunately, to your point, it adds so much uncertainty as far as how these different locals are going to have to address this and have to plan for it. When you do a budget, it's not, okay, well, we just need to keep the lights on for the next 2 years. It's what capital improvement projects do we have? How are we supposed to grow? How are we supposed to shrink? That uncertainty, I think, is compounded by the idea that, well, if we can just come back here and do it next year, well, that just adds to the uncertainty. And it's I think exactly why Senator Bohacek and I stood against this, because we knew that it's tough enough being a locally elected official and dealing with these issues and being in the grocery store and having to see the public and having to answer these questions directly to the face of the public that you serve. It's one of the major reasons why to Councilman's or Commissioner's point, I'm probably one of the folks that gets labeled more Republican than Democrat when it comes to local control, because it's one of the things that you hear me say from the podium time and time again. And having worked in local government for 10 years, the idea that they are going to be able to address their issues more directly and more specifically and address the specific problems that they're going to have to face with structured and curated solutions is exactly why we should be allowing those locals to have control over the budgets, to have control over what regulations are going to apply and which don't. So it's one of these things that I've been probably most frustrated with, because oftentimes they're like, oh, you're a Democrat, you're super liberal. Well, no, let's back up. I think if anything, I find myself falling into that role more and more and more of the almost like the traditional Republican approach of let the locals be able to decide, let small government be the best and most efficient government. So
Thank you, Ronnie. Any other questions?
There's still a couple people left at your table.
Quiet.
Nobody wants to talk about the Bears? It was fun.
Let's Scott over back.
It's a quiet one.
Mr. President, can you talk a little bit about the affordable housing thing, a little bit more about that, what you're proposing, some of the changes? Just curiosity.
There's been a lot of focus on architectural standards, lot sizing, building requirements, zoning requirements, just a whole array of things. And I think what 1001 does is we're compiling it. I don't know how it's going to come out of committee, and I didn't even get the opportunity to watch the committee testimony yet, because I was in transportation. So one of the goals is, and probably best example is architectural standards. So when we talk about architectural standards, we have communities, I don't know that LaPorte County is guilty of this, but everybody wants to look like Disneyland, right? So everybody wants to be Carmel, everybody wants to be Noblesville, everybody wants to be Fishers. But the reality is, we are creating so many standards that it prices the folks out of housing that work for us, right? I ask some of these mayors, when they're doing these things, it's like, can your police department, can anybody on your force actually afford to buy a house in your community, the community that they serve? And they're like, no. Why are we doing that? So same thing with the firefighters or service industry. I mean, I'm not picking on one particular group here, but to require 3 sides of brick, that's great if I want to pay for that. But for a community to say, no, that's the only way we're going to let you build houses here is you got to have a really steep roof pitch, which adds nothing to the house aesthetically. Looks great. I agree. And if the consumer wants that and willing to pay for it, then God bless them and carry on. It's America. But for government to say and do those restrictions, it really sets that bar of affordable housing way too far. Like I can tell you one community that wanted and required for a long time is to strip all of the soil off of your lot, and we want you to bring in 6 inches of black organic dirt. Why? So the grass is prettier. That was the response they gave me. I'm like, we can't afford that. People can't afford that. But if they want it, let them do that. Let them decide. So that's kind of the goal of it, is to reduce those standards, and there's an opt-out process, so if your community wants to do some of these things, you can still do that, you just need to opt out of the program, and I think there should be a provision added to it, and I've talked to the author of that bill, is when local government does that, I think they should put a fiscal out there and say, here is the impact of that on each one of these new houses we're gonna be. And you being in the planning industry, you get it, right? So it's trying to bring housing to an attainable standard through standards.
Thanks, Jim.
Add something to that.
Mayor, do you want to touch on this?
Well, I want to make sure I want to make sure I have a discussion with them, because one of our issues is with our historic preservation area. And I don't agree with a lot of things in our ordinance for that, because it costs a lot of money for people who've been in their homes to just replace a door or a window, right? And I've had my struggles with them in the past as well, but I think people should be able to opt out, for certain things. So I'll definitely have a conversation with you about that, because I agree with them.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm gonna ask you a question next. I've got a couple different versions of the same question. I'll start by saying, appreciate all of you. There's 6 people up here. We live in a world where politics are unfortunately incredibly divisive. But you all do a great job of working together, and I think that shows through in conversations like this. So can you maybe touch on that as we look forward, whether we're talking at the national level, the state level, the local level? How do we get back or get to a place where we're more eager to work together in partnership across party lines?
Well, see, locally it's a little different. At the local level, like, I can just use our Indiana Conference of Mayors. Most of my peers, I don't know what party they're in. We have all the same issues regardless of party. We don't get bogged down. We want streets, we want money for streets. We want to make sure we have police and fire protection, all those things. I think the thing that has changed dramatically is social media. People are in your personal business, they attack your families, and then people are trying to defend. I don't try to defend on social media. It's not worth it. So we just have to hold ourselves to a different standard. I'll get an email from Steve or whoever, and there's no like, hey, I'm not gonna talk to you because you're a Republican. There's none of that. I don't see that. Now, I will say it's an election year. You might see more of that from people, but I don't kind of get that from the elected officials. I think it's more keyboard warriors that do that. I don't see people, doing that, because when they come to the office, or when I see some of those keyboard warriors that I didn't know they were keyboard warriors, because they didn't say anything to me, or even raise their hand to ask a question in my presence. Cowards, anyway. All I'm saying is, and I don't bite. So I just think it's interesting that there are so many guardrails that have been taken down on freedom of speech. But then, we talk about freedom of speech, but then we still try to impose our will to shut people down. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't open up the floodgates and then pick and choose what people hear. So it's kind of hard to even have that discussion unless you just have an actual symposium on it. I just think that at the local level, it's a little different, a little bit calmer. People do identify things that they can attack on, and they jump on the bandwagon. It's just like when you see a pile of garbage, and then somebody else said, "Oh, I saw that pile of garbage, so I'm gonna drop my stuff off and put it on top of it." We see that, and that's how it is just with politics right now. Just dump on the fire. Well, I'm just gonna jump on that because I get likes, clicks, all of that, and I think it's just unfortunate. But we still have to do the work, so you have to drown that out and not engage. And I tell people, push back when you see something that's false. But now, if you push back, they can delete what you said anyway. So does it really matter? So why engage in spending energy or effort? That's what I tell people.
Thank you, Mayor. Randy, go ahead.
So I just want to add this to that. Social media amplifies conflicts. So the majority of people downstate all get along. When you're not in session, there's heated issues, and there's heated issues within parties. So it's not unique. But social media blows it out of proportion and makes it look like, there's a line drawn down there and nobody crosses it and nobody talks on both sides. It's nothing like that. And I'm here for a disclaimer. I don't want to use the word nuts. There's some people on one side and there's some people on the far other side that might have more issues with that. But the majority of all the people, and it's on both sides, the majority of the people all get along and try to get the work done. So it's not what's portrayed, and they want you to think it's like that, and it's not always like that.
And I'll add, before I give it to Senator Cole, most of my meetings last year were with Republican legislators downstate. So, because they, committee chairs, I went to go testify a couple of times, and they were carrying bills that I needed. So it's not about that, it's about building relationships with folks. And I was like, hey, when you come over to Michigan City, let's go to dinner. Those are those things that people don't understand are still happening because of the way things are portrayed in the media.
You guys all saw how quickly Randy's become a statewide politician. Really choosing his words safely over here. Now, I think one of the things that, particularly us in Northwest Indiana, we all speak the same language, and you recognize that pretty quickly when you get down there. That speaking for those of us that serve down at the State House, we know our issues. Mike has represented in the past part of my district, and so he knows things that go back years before I was even in the legislature, before I had was even a blip on the radar down there. And so he really helps me out all the time on like, hey, this was an issue before in Michigan City, and it's that camaraderie and that looking out for each other that not only builds trust, but it builds a kind of like a force to be reckoned with in Northwest Indiana. It is a solid purple force that when issues pop up, I know where I can turn to for help. Hey, this is going to affect not only LaPorte, but this is going to have that ripple effect for Michigan City. Or this is not only going to affect Gary, this is going to go down to Crown Point. And so we have a special relationship, I think, when we get down there, where we're definitely always looking out for each other. And so if Jim's got or if I've got an issue that I need help with in the house, I know that I can go to Jim Presser, and Jim is going to, one, understand, and two, he's going to help out. That I can't speak how important that is, because I think all too often, particularly for a lot of us, there always seems to be the sense that Northwest Indiana, is a giver area. We generate a lot from industry. We have a lot of tax revenue that gets generated out of the area, but oftentimes we're forgotten about. And I think things like for example, the Crime Guns Task Force. That's been so focused in central Indiana, but we know that gun crime doesn't only just happen in central Indiana. So building that coalition of both Democrat and Republicans in Northwest Indiana to come out and support these things is vital. So, you won't hear us talk bad about each other. You won't hear, and it's genuine. It's because we genuinely do like working with each other, and we do like getting these things done, so.
I'd like to reiterate, go ahead, Mike.
And just kind of wrap up what everybody kind of said, because it is true, at least in the Senate, I know the House is the same way too, is, from South Bend, where we have David Dutzkowski, who's a Democrat, you have me, you have Rodney, we have, Senator Charbonneau, Senator Dutzkowski, or I'm sorry, Senator Durnell and Niemeyer, as well as Senator Randolph. Kind of the way we feel about things, I'm sure it's probably the same in the House too, is it's region, constituent, caucus in that order. So if it impacts us, which us is all of us, that's going to be the first thing we're going to look at in many of these situations, and then we'll go right to what our constituents want. And third on that list is going to be my Republican caucus friends. Because the nice thing about it is in the Senate, there's only one person that can vote for me there, and that's me. So and we all just stick together. And by the way, the proper nomenclature for a keyboard coward is actually a content creator. And I only know that because in a lawsuit we're in the process of filing against a DC person who decided to defame my wife. We had to actually find out what the definition was of a content creator.
Okay.
So jot that one down. So thanks.
Commissioner, do you want to close?
Yes,
us on
I'd like
this
to add
topic?
one quick thing to that.
I just want to know that that end of the table's hogging the mic.
As to the cowardly remarks, I so believe in that 100%. I've actually had a young lady come to our commissioner meeting, demand my resignation because I chastise people for spreading mistruths, lies, and misinformation out there on Facebook. These same people, I've called them out in meetings and everything else, come to my office. I'm in my office every day. I have a cell phone, I have an email. They refuse to come do that because no matter what, they're 100% right. We are telling them lies. And unfortunately, they have 10 or 12 people that believe them and keep passing information on. And I hate to think somewhere in one of these major data centers, there's pictures of me in a dress dancing up and down in the county commissioners meeting with other people in the county government. And I think that also, you people are here. Oh, I've seen it. You'd be shocked. Yeah, see there.
Was it real?
Yeah, this is a frat party. But you people that take the time out of your schedule to come here and learn the truths, the people that come to my office, they want to know what's going on. Years ago, I did not know what was going on. I got involved. And now that I found out, the reason they do it that way is because it has to be done that way. And like I said, whenever I've spoken with DC reps, senators, state reps and senators, never once has anybody asked me, well, first of all, what party are you from? My first election process was back in 1984 with Mondale and Reagan. Back then, the people had respect for each other. Nowadays, it's disgusting. And I think that prevents us from getting better people involved in that because they're scared to put their families through that. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce my new campaign manager, Steve Hollifield.
All right, please help me thank our panelists this morning. We appreciate all of your time and joining us. I will turn it back over to, nope, I'm not going to turn it back over. I want to thank you all for being here. We are closing the event. Don, do you have one quick announcement? Go ahead.
Yes,
Mike,
right.
go ahead.
Number one, I want to thank all of you. And what, you're all singing Kumbaya. That's the way you should see that in government all the time.
I never got
Well,
the
you
mic.
got kind of Kumbaya. You want me to use that? All right.
A&W.
We have another event coming up this coming Monday. For those of you that don't remember, this is Martin Luther King Celebration Day, and we just had a nice presentation yesterday at our Hammond campus, and this coming Monday morning, free breakfast, by the way, in this very room, we're going to have our delightful mayor be our MC for the day, and if you want to say a little something about our guest speaker for the day, but we want to have an ongoing community discussion relative to how can we create a better environment for all of us and live and respect each other even more. So thank you all. But Mayor, would you like to talk a little bit about Kiana?
Sure. Miss
This is the flyer.
Kiana Warder Davis, she born and raised in Michigan City, has a successful business in Indianapolis. She is an IU grad. Sorry. Go IU. You all should be supporting IU this week, okay? But and has her master's. But she is heavily involved in women's issues, financial literacy, you name it. But born and raised here, she comes back to the school, she gives back. She's actually out of the country right now. She'll be back Sunday, but she's a trainer, she's a motivator. And she'll, bring a good word and message on Monday. And she's Central Regional Director for Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, covering over 12 states. So just heavily involved.
Thank you, Mayor.
Love to see you. And they have the best bacon and sausage here. The breakfast is great.
All right, hope everybody has a good rest of their Friday. Thanks again.